Hello and welcome. My name is Tolola Falashe, and with me is,
Olu Benson.
and this is Decrypting Relationships. Olu, tell us what our disclaimer is so people know where we stand.
Well, like we normally say,
Yep.
we are not qualified professionals in relationships at all. We are just two individuals who have been married for quite a while in our different marriages.
Praise
And
God.
we felt we could come together and share some nuggets that we have gathered over the years in terms of experience that we think could help other people. So we are no professionals. We're not certified in any form or shape in terms of emotional issues or marital issues or relationship issues, just two individuals who want to share.
Absolutely, because, relationships are just so important, aren't they? For support. Earlier on, we're talking about mental well-being, and I think relationships, healthy relationships, are so critical. Especially in this day and age of, emotional and mental wellness, awareness type thing. So that's part of why we have the passion, and we want people's relationship to be successful, young people and everyone alike, because I think it's crucial, it's important.
Yes, it is.
Excellent. So today we will be talking about we're still looking at the discovery, aren't we? So
AKA courtship.
Yeah. Well, we had to inject that. I think it's a beautiful word, courtship.
It is.
But hey, listen, it's had its day, but we'll keep it alive.
They know what we're talking about now. They didn't before.
AKA courtship, so the discovery phase. And today we're going to look at individual aspirations, right?
Yes.
So how would you define that? Give us a definition, and then we'll go into the topic.
Aspirations are quite diversified, but my short interpretation of that will just be personal ambitions. So it could be spiritual, it could be academic, it could be business-wise, it could be personal development. So it's varied. It's just a matter of, I think in a nutshell, I'll say is your roadmap to making your life better. Because when you aspire to something, I would expect that is as just a very simple person that they're meant to bring out the best in you, not something that'll make your life regress. So that's what I'm saying. That's why I would assume my definition will be that something that is looking to improve you in some form or shape. And that's me. Not necessarily dictionary meaning, but that's just the way I summed it up based on what I have gone through as a person, my journey in life.
That's powerful. The reason why it's powerful is because personal ambition or aspiration is not one dimensional. You mentioned spiritual. People have personal aspirations for the spiritual in their life. You understand? Maybe because of the experience up until a particular point, they want to grow, they want to mature in that realm. And so it's important to actually see the different dimensions of individual aspiration and ambition, career, personal development, So that was, I can't really add to that. That was very succinct.
Kidding.
But
you just caught me at the knees. I was just about to throw it back at you, Tolu.
Well, but I will add something. The thing with our personal aspiration and ambition is that they're driven by values, aren't they? And I think we mentioned about values. We've talked about values before, but we in one of our conversations, you said, well, we didn't go deep into what forms our values, what shapes our values, isn't it? Because that's what drives our ambition. So if you ask me, I would say values are like our priority hierarchy, really, isn't it? That's one thing I would say. So I will look at, okay, what's in the top tier of my priorities? I might say it's family. I might say it's health. So I watch what I eat. I have a strict regime. It could be fitness, which means nothing stops me from going out and whatever it is. So our aspirations and ambitions driven by our values. So anything. What are your thoughts about that?
I think Yeah. Now that I'm thinking of it, they could actually you could actually cross over from one domain of those two words to another.
Yeah.
Because your aspirations are, I think your values are really like the foundation of who you are.
Absolutely.
Those are the things. And without a good foundation, you wouldn't even know how you want to build on it. So basically, your aspirations are what you want to build on that foundation. So yeah, so your aspirations, I have to say, are the offshoot of your values.
Absolutely. And this is where where values, understanding an individual's value and the
Mm-hmm.
other individuals, since this is the discovery phase, the courtship
Yeah.
phase, both individuals should really understand what their values are so that they can actually
Yes.
communicate it effectively, across
Mm-hmm.
to each other, so that I can, or spouse A can know that, oh, you know what, spouse, my prospective spouse, wife, husband values, sounds very much
Yeah.
aligned with mine. There's something I could be excited about, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think that's also attainable if we're not just focusing on the physical, because if you find
Of
it that
course.
people are just so caught up in the, oh, she's so fine, oh, he's so fine, and they never talk about anything tangible during courtship. It's all about, just sweeping me off my feet, as long as he's buying me and spoiling me with gifts, and as long as she's just looking pretty on my arms, then I've got the best girl. But values go deeper than that. And that
Yes.
is the essence of today's topic, to let us know and just drum it in that there's some things that you cannot overlook. Like they say, if you fail to plan, yeah, that's it. If you fail to plan, then you're planning to fail. So
Absolutely.
your aspirations are part of the plans that you have for your future, for your life as an individual, and for your life as a couple. So you need to talk about them. We need to start, shying away from, oh, that is too deep. Oh, well, you better go as deep as you can whilst you're courting, because if you're caught in a marriage that's not deep, when the trials and the storms and the winds start blowing, then there won't be much to stand on. So please give it a
Let's go
listen
deep.
and just have a think that it's not
Yeah.
just about date nights. It's about talking about things that matter, things that really could direct the health of your relationship, so that you're starting from the same page.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As you're speaking there, I remembered that Bible parable of the seed that fell on rocky ground.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't have any depth, so it
Mm-hmm.
didn't last. There was no longevity.
Exactly. When the
So
wind came and the storm came.
boom, it was gone. It was
Mm-hmm.
gone. And I think that's what you're saying, because
Mm-hmm.
we cannot be superficial, in our pursuit of deep and long-lasting relationships. We have to go deep.
Meaningful relationship too. It has to be
Meaningful.
meaningful, because
Meaningful.
some people who are going into relationships are, no, let's just have fun. If all you're doing is to really have a meaningful, deep relationship, then there's some things that, no matter how unpleasant or difficult they might seem, they need to be broached. You need to
Exactly.
talk about them.
Exactly. Okay, so let's talk a little bit. Let's move into the topic for today, which is really individual aspirations.
Yes.
When we planned today's talk, you mentioned how some people. Let's start with one of the challenges. Sometimes one prospective spouse's aspiration could threaten the other person's, could be a threat. It could be, wow,
Yeah.
this spouse has some lofty aspirations and lofty dreams. This could dwarf me. I could look insignificant next to this person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually intimidated, by their dreams.
Just
Now,
hearing it alone.
say that again.
I said, just hearing the dream alone.
Exactly, and so I mean, what nuggets would you have
And that's
in
why,
this scenario?
when we started out, we talked about being open.
Yes.
And it takes a confident person. So it's almost like stepping back to the beginning of this podcast on this platform. The very first thing, or one of the very first things we touched on, you need to know who you are before you engage in bringing someone else's complexities into your life. I use the word complexities because even the Bible says, there's a version of the NLT that says, I'm made in a very complex way.
Yeah.
Even we are acknowledged to be very complex beings. So that's an insulting statement. It's just the truth.
But
And
we
if
are.
you
We
as a,
are.
exactly. So
We are.
if you as a complex unit have not got your own act together to actually know who you are, you can imagine bringing another layer of complexities on that. That's going to be very messy. So in understanding who you are, it makes it easy, whether difficult or not, because I said in my opening statement on today's podcast that no matter how difficult or deep some of these topics are, they need to be broached, they need to be talked about, because the minute you start to talk about them, even if they seem so far apart, like Tolu said, that you think, I'm going to be dwarfed. If you don't really lay all those cards on the table, then you're not in a position to start looking at a middle ground. To say, can we, maybe if the spouse A is very passionate about this, maybe there could be, well, that's when you start like, oh, could we stretch this dream, of course, maybe 10 years and see where so that mind can fit into the, whatever is less complicated. But it's all about conversation and communication. So if you're not talking about them, you don't know if there are any crossovers, because sometimes both of you might actually share dreams that are very similar. So instead of going on tangents to do your separate things, you might actually be able to pull resources together and get there faster.
Okay.
And
let me ask you this. Sorry to cut you off. I wanted to ask you this because it's actually in line with what you're saying right now. So say, for example, a guy and a lady are, at this discovery stage. The girl has this lofty, maybe in the guy's eyes they're lofty, I just use the word lofty, and she's like, I'm going for my PhD, and I'm going to work for a maybe even a multinational company, for example. And the guy is hearing this and he feels threatened. Now he's threatened not because of maybe his position or maybe his even educational background, but because of the cultural background. Because culture is actually a very strong and powerful agent of shaping people's thinking, isn't it? So how do we tackle the cultural, I guess, interference in that process? Because like you said, the guy could be perhaps willing to listen, but there's this thing about the culture that, your wife cannot be earning that much more than you,
Exactly.
So yeah,
I think
the way
this
to
is one of the
tackle
things we're trying to do here to kind of demystify all those negativities in our culture, and whatever other cultures are impacted by this. My take from the get-go has been that if you guys really are going into a lifetime relationship, it doesn't matter who earns more, as long as both of you are working for the same future, towards the same goals, towards, we talked about aspirations being, an offshoot of your values. If your core values are similar, there's no reason why your aspirations should be a problem where someone feels inferior or dwarfed by the other person. That is why all this stuff, they are kind of interwoven without dabbling or repeating everything that's been said before.
Absolutely.
If you guys have the same core values, you should be confident enough to say, this is where I'm headed. If the husband feels like, not husband at this stage, if the partner, one of the partners, whoever is impacted, feels that this dream seems, talk about it.
Absolutely.
See, let the person, if she wants to be have a doctorate degree about whatever, then ask her, how long are you looking to, so you can look at how, these are the things I'm hoping to do too. Because just to make it more practical, my husband and I literally did that throughout the initial phase of our marriage, because both of us were into IT at the time, and there were so many certifications that needed to be done. So we kind of made way for, okay, you will do this phase, I'll focus more around the house. So those are things that we kind of agreed on, that we needed to encourage. There's not going to be one person just going off and being like 11 steps ahead of the other person. That will cause friction. But if you speak about it and you realize both of you have that, okay, you do one level of certification, you hold back, look after the home, be more active around the house, and then give room for the other person to go ahead. so that both of you are literally holding each other. It's almost like a joyous thing. It becomes a joyous that we are moving together, as opposed to, oh, you just sit at home and be watching the children and I'm going to focus on my career. It's not, it causes friction. So this is what we're talking about, being mature enough to say, we both have these aspirations. How can we embrace both so that one person doesn't feel left behind? And it's in talking about it.
Absolutely. And when you defined personal ambition earlier on, you talked about personal development, didn't you? And I think
that's
that's
one of the aspirations.
Absolutely. And I think that addresses, look, because we all, come into relationships, whatever stages, and now we're talking about the discovery stage. We're still coming with various levels of insecurities, don't we?
I'm gonna cut you short there, Tolu.
Yeah.
So you, being a man, and considering that most of the challenges that we face in our culture is really from the guy side feeling inferior, the woman feels that she has to.
So, do you have data to support that that statement?
Are you saying that statement is incorrect? So what would be your advice to young men who have been raised to believe that the woman's place is somewhere and the man is supposed to go out? Because in the current generation that we're in, both people really need to pull their resources together to
absolutely.
make it move faster.
Absolutely.
So what would you say to a guy who feels sidetracked or sidelined by the woman's aspirations or dreams?
What I would say, two or three things. The first thing is this, we mentioned this in previous episodes that, and you mentioned it, that a man will leave his mom and his father and mother, and then cleave onto his wife, right? That is the man that does that. So that I think that would be the very first thing to say to any guy listening out there that might feel threatened. You understand? When he says leave your mother and your father, it's not only talking, in terms of leaving the family home, leaving the influence of mom and dad, but leaving the influence of society at large. Because when you're connected, you're married to this person, this is between you, your wife, future wife, and the God you serve. Every other third party don't have any business in your personal dealings. So you're not exposed. You understand? And I think this is why the discovery session is very important, or the discovery phase is important to kind of like feel each other out for, can I trust this person, as we've talked about. And because when the trust comes in there, the guy should not be threatened. I think that's first thing. Secondly, I would say, that like you said, if eventually, they get married, husband and wife together, pull their resources together, and they begin to have children, it is for the good of everyone, for the bank balance to be healthy, because that will dictate the quality of life that the family will have. So it is always a win-win. So I would say to the person or to the guy, see it as a win-win. Even thank your God, if you're a believer, thank your God that, because the Bible does say that he who finds a wife finds a good thing, and obtains favor, isn't it? So seriously, and that's from the bottom of my heart, that look, it is a blessing, either way, if you are able to connect, to get married to someone who, has worked really hard, using their strengths, using their talents and their knowledge to earn more than you, that's fine. Because the thing is, I think men sometimes measure the their, what's the word I'm looking for, the effectiveness as men from what they earn, and and there is no law that says what you earn is the measure of who you are as a man. It's not what you earn. If we go by the Bible, is the love that you show to your wife that is the measure of your love, of who you are as a man, your wife and your children. So if once we are educated as men, or we realize that, or we embrace that truth, then it makes life a lot easier. Does that make sense? I know I went
It
on a little
does,
bit.
but can I step into that, because
Yeah, please.
I like to be fair to any conversation, and also looking at both sides of the coin.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to also say something. This is speaking to the women, because also even though the men have been mostly brainwashed to believe that is what their calling is, you have to be the breadwinner. The women in some areas too have been made to believe that you have to depend on the husband. So when that role changes in real life, I have observed in some relationships that there is an element of arrogance with the woman, and that is a deal breaker. I'm not saying become a subservient woman. I am not one in my marriage, so I wouldn't encourage you, because that's not what the Bible says. No one is asking a woman to be subservient, but at the same time, there's an element of humility that is expected when or should you get into a position where you are earning better than your man. Because I have witnessed circumstances where the women start to earn, maybe the guy has been the breadwinner, and the woman suddenly gets that chance of looking to have a higher earning power. And boy, did the guys hear about it. And this is where there has to be a balance. There has to be the fear of God, and there has to be an element of humility. Because the tables could turn too. Like the tides could turn when, so yeah, so please, I'm speaking to the women here. Be ambitious, aspire to do great things. Don't just wait around for the guy to fend for everything. But when or should you then get to the point where you're the breadwinner, please don't let the men regret your man. In your case, in each woman's case, don't let your man regret whatever it is that they're doing. Just try to encourage them to look into other areas. And that's why I'm asking Tolu to speak into this, because the strength of a marriage is not necessarily about the financial power. It goes beyond that. We're talking about, something that, transcends money. We're talking about respect for each other. We're talking about, honoring each other. It's a bilateral thing. It has to flow both ways. And that is what I want to put out there, please, regarding that topic.
Cool. And yeah, absolutely. I think, while money plays a huge role, in marriage, but I think it's not ultimately the most important thing, even though it's vitally important, but it's not the most important thing, isn't it? So the unity, trust, respect, companionship, because if there's money and there's no companionship, there's no friendship,
exactly.
There's no respect, it can get really difficult.
Yeah.
That's the only word the best word I can use for now. But let me ask you this question. So we've talked about the threat. So maybe the lady's ambition, aspiration is threatening to the guy. What if there's a situation where the lady, or maybe one of the, say either the guy or one of the parties, the aspiration isn't that interesting to the other party? Maybe they just thought, wow, you're really aiming low, in life, how, seriously, because I have heard people.
No ambition.
Maybe it was my choice of words, but maybe what?
Honestly, no, we have to go there, because
So tell me,
the ugly.
No, tell me
so
what.
Need to do with them.
How do you tackle that? So
I think this is where your each person's sense of humor comes into it. Whoever is having this very low ambition, please don't just shut them down, because you have to be mindful of the fact that every individual is a product of the environment. In your eyes, those ambitions might be mediocre, but in his background, from where he's coming from, maybe he or she was the first graduate from where he's coming from. The fact that he's aspiring beyond the university education is a big deal to them. But in your lineage, maybe everybody, has been an entrepreneur. Everybody has some serious degrees. They've got PhDs. Everybody's oozing with all sorts of qualifications. And then you look at him and thinking, of all the things that you want to do, is that all? Anything? That's a lot. And that's what I'm saying. Humor has to be a good thing here, because encourage them to even spill it out. Because sometimes communication, in terms of, people trying to express what it is that they want, might not even come across like they actually have it in their head. There might not be a good correlation between what's being said and what's really in the head. So you, as the so-called more ambitious person, don't just shut them down to say, oh, you better go and think. And you think that's going to feed us? Try and encourage them. No, what exactly is it? Talk through it. And you, as the more ambitious person, you might actually be able to put a few spins on that small idea, because you have to remember, we all have to be, what's the word now? Embracing of small beginnings. Look at that small idea that he or she has and see how you could put your spin on it to encourage them. Say, oh, why didn't you look at it from this point of view? Oh, don't you know if you venture this way, that might actually be a better thing for you? Or no, so don't just shut them down, because you can really literally destroy their self-esteem if you did that.
Okay.
So that'll be my advice on that. And also, you have to be careful that you because the middle ground then is going to touched on the low dreamers. The big dreamers, and then we have the ones that always everything that's in or on trend is their dream.
Okay.
So we need to be wary of such too. So whoever is more sane, because you always have one person who is hyper, and then you have one who is sane, who keeps everything grounded. The more ground one needs to bring it down. Get the other person to bring it down a few notches. Say, out of all these 20 ambitions, which ones really, and try and walk them through it. Because so that's why you need to understand the person you're getting into a relationship, because we've all come from very different backgrounds. So don't just go with the assumption that everybody understands where you're coming from, because we've all come from that background. No. And that is that's what I'll say on that for now.
Interesting.
What would you say?
So it's an interesting one, really, isn't it? I mean, so if a couple of two parties are discovering, they're in this discovery phase, and one feels the other person's aspiration is a little bit maybe lower league to maybe where they would like them to be, like you said. I mean, one approach is like, okay, you know what, I like you, I like your values, I like who you are as a person. Actually, me coming into your life, maybe part of me coming into your life is to pull you higher, challenge you to raise the bar a little bit. That could be one approach. But I don't know if there is a place where, honestly speaking, and again, this isn't my own opinion, I'm just throwing it out there. Is there ever a situation where someone might think, you know what, I really can't deal with this person's lack of ambition. I think it's going to be a problem going forward. I don't even have it in me to encourage and pull this person along with me, because I am so what's the word, so
far ahead.
So maybe not so much so far ahead, but I'm so focused on looking for bigger and better things. I haven't got time to pull you along. I need somebody who is self-motivating themselves, or big dreamers. So I don't know, would you say there's a place for that?
I think this is why the discovery phase is very, very crucial.
Yeah.
Like, we don't just look at the aesthetics of it, you're just looking pretty.
Yeah.
Because these are things that would eventually become, the bane of any marriage if they're not careful. And also, without sounding like a broken record, this is the more reason why you need to be honest with yourself. If you're the kind of person that likes to operate at 1,000 miles an hour every minute of the day, and you're courting someone who just likes to chill, there's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
And this is where you need to ask yourself, because that's why the courtship stage is non-committal. It's a discovery stage. You haven't agreed to marry. That's why you do all these things before you propose and say yes. You don't do all this, so when you go through, you say you're dating for like 6 years, all you do is dating and date, and then you propose, he or she, whoever does the proposal now, because it's either way. The proposal goes and you say yes, and it starts, oh, by the way, where are we going to live? Oh, by the way, what do you think? How many children are we looking to have? No. Do all of those when you're dining and whining each other, so that you know if it's a no-no, and then you can move on if it's not going to work for you. But before you move on, don't just discard everything. There has to be some form of conversation. Try and talk about it.
Yeah. And I think also in that scenario that I just pitched, that I just painted, and I asked the question, is there a place for it to say, look, I haven't got the energy, I haven't got the space, the mind, the headspace for dragging somebody along. And I think dragging is a harsh word. But, if we think deeply about it, if there is genuine deep love and connection, I think possibly there might be room for some kind of, I don't know, compromise, or, like you said, it will all come out in the
But that's why
conversation.
they need to talk about it to
It will
actually
come
see if
out,
it's something that I
absolutely.
can compromise on.
It will come out in the conversation.
Because some people are just totally impatient. If you're a very impatient person and you're 1,000 miles an hour person,
yeah,
such people, even if the other person who is the slower one is being seen, so we love each other so much, I'll take it. That 1,000 miles an hour will be a frustration to the slower one, because at some point you want them to slow down too.
That's a good point. That's
point. That's why both of you need to be on the same page and talk and be honest about it. If it doesn't work, cut your losses at that point and move on, as opposed to, oh, well, we love each other. Because trust me, you and I have been married for so many years, Tolu. Sometimes it's not just about love. Love alone doesn't cut it.
Exactly. Let me put you on the spot. Make it a little bit difficult for you.
Here it goes.
Let's role play for a second, right? So you're a high flying executive in the city, and you haven't got you're just like, come on, you know what I mean? I mean, every second is so valuable for you, and you're in this discovery stage, right? We're role playing, and the person, your love interest is slower and everything, and they just need so much motivation to make this, complete opposite to you. How would you begin that conversation with?
You would, because the thing, for such people, the two extremes that you've kind of stated, they can't hide. Those people can never hide their personality, so you don't even need to inquire, because they will just be right there in your face. The slow one will just be there, just taking their time, lounging, while the one at speed is always going. And half of the time, find out people who are so driven, they forget everybody else around them. They don't want to take anyone on the ride.
Sometimes do, yes. They sometimes.
So that's what I'm saying. Sometimes the conversation might not even happen, because if the slow one is real, this person will never remember if I'm there or not. And then you're thinking, does this person even ever think they can make an effort to kind of catch up at some time? It's just, I don't know. I don't know. Because I'll say to the overdriven person, you need to chill too, because you can't be you burn out. So just speaking generally and just being like, irrespective of where you're at, whether you're in a relationship or not, if you're too driven, it's a problem. And if you're not driven at all, it's a problem. So both sides of the spectrum, people need to try and, because we're living in a generation where everything is so fast-paced. I'm old school, as by virtue of what's going on now. So I can't even imagine in this generation being so laid back.
Okay.
So things are happening. Yeah.
Let me wrap up with this, because we've run out of time. We have about 2 minutes to go. And then I'll allow you, just sort of like give us your own recap. I'll give a little recap. And then I listened to someone, she's American. She's quite a prominent speaker in America. And she said she actually fits into that high-powered, fast-moving individual. Her spouse was the slower type person. And she confessed, she actually owned up, and she said, you know what? God brought this guy into my life to slow me down, because when I move at such fast pace, there's some sweet details that I miss.
Okay.
I don't sometimes stop to smell the roses. I don't, like you said, and you mentioned it, Olu, you said, there's certain things that you might miss out that could, you can look back in another maybe 10 years or something and say, wow, I missed that little detail, So she said, but God put this guy in my life to slow me down a little bit so that I could smell the roses. I could see those little details. And I, in turn, hastened him a little bit, brought a little bit of urgency into his life. So there was a bit of reciprocating effect in that union, so
exactly.
and I think that for me, that's a place I'd like to land this conversation before we end. So we've been talking about individual aspirations, what sometimes your future spouse or prospective spouse, could have aspirations that could be very exciting, or it could be or it could be threatening, or it could be, it could be a case where it's, wow, maybe not actually very, very low league compared to where you are, so we've talked about that a little bit. So any other thoughts, Olu, before we
I think the true life story you gave kind of summed up my last discussion, my last set of statements with regards to, if you're too fast, you need to, it causes a problem. You need to slow down a bit. And if you're too slow too, it's a problem. You need to pick it up a bit. And that's why, and also I think from what you said, theirs must have, because you never hear the in-between stories, how much pain, how much work it took for them to get to the maturity of understanding the fact that, oh, this guy was actually in my life to slow me down. Because I'm sure at the initial set, she must have been frustrated. And God knows how much abuse she probably reigned. I'm not saying that's the case, but from
there's a possibility.
There's a possibility, how much abuse that, had gone in between the two, in the exchanges to say, will you ever, man, will you ever pick things up? And she's like, woman, life, well, if you drop dead chasing all those things, life goes on. Calm down a bit, So I can't even begin to imagine the dynamics when they first got together. But I'm happy they weathered through. But if you look at how much sacrifice must have gone into their coming to that conclusion, I'd rather you kind of spoke about it when you're younger.
True.
Try and understand. That's why this education is that we are bringing all these things to light, to say these are issues that eventually, show up in marriages because they were never tackled at the outset. Everybody was just so in love. We were putting our best foot forward. We didn't discuss the key things. And when they started unraveling, we stayed in this marriage because, oh, well, it's probably not going to, for the sake of the children or for the sake of something, let's just weather through. And not everybody makes it through that, realization that, oh, God brought this person in for this purpose. A lot of marriages have crumbled, which is why you and I have the passion to start speaking to people to see what can be tackled, what mistakes can be avoided before you head into this lifelong relationship that then crumbles, having invested the best years of your life into.
Very true.
And that's why I'm ending my comment for tonight. I hope people have been blessed. We hope people have been educated, we've been informed. And that's all we can hope for.
Thank you so much, Olu. And so guys, remember, please share, if you're listening on the platform where you could drop a comment, please comment, ask questions. And our wishes for you is that your relationships will be healthy and you'll continue to go, in leaps and bounds, growing in leaps and bounds, making great progress. And remember, you're always in our prayers, and we're wishing you well. So from me, it's goodbye. And from Olu,
have a wonderful time.
Have a wonderful time. Till next time.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.